Right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Happy Shushan Purim for you. For me, even Shushan Purim is over. But as we know, or for you might be familiar with, Shushan Purim, according to the Megillah, was today that people who lived in walled cities that were walled at the time of Joshua's coming into the land of Israel and settling the land of Israel. If you lived in a walled city, then you celebrate Purim today rather than yesterday. So my sister who lives in Jerusalem, she had her Purim today. We had it the day before. Some people try and get 2 days of Purim in, so they'll travel, they'll come to some place where it's not if they live in Jerusalem, and then they go back and forth. So they'll try to be able to get two of them, which is totally fine. This year, people weren't really doing so much traveling. It was really people who were already in Jerusalem were the ones who were celebrating. So interestingly, there was a question where we live because since we overlook Jericho, and Jericho we know was a walled city when Joshua came in, because we know that the walls came tumbling down with Joshua fighting that battle. So there was a question about whether in where we are in Mitzpeh Yericho, if we would have Shushan Purim, because we're within sight and close enough to a walled city or not. But because we can't see the place archaeologically where the old city of Jericho was, because it's expanded and gotten bigger, so we see more of what's the new part. So it says Mitzpeh Yericho is outside of the range of the old walled city of Jericho. So we celebrate regular Purim rather than Shushan Purim. But Shushan Purim still has the status of being festive. On a normal year, kids would have Purim carnivals on Shushan Purim if they were living in places where there was regular Purim, but things were a little different this year. So what a week, since we were together last week, not knowing what was going to happen, knowing something was imminent, not knowing what, not knowing who, exactly when, or anything. Was really crazy. So I'm going to share some things with you, many things you probably know, depending on how you're following it. But I just want to put the whole thing in the context of Purim, since obviously this is all Purim related. So the first of all is the fact that the attack that America and Israel attacked on Shabbos, and the Shabbos was Shabbat Zachor. Shabbat Zachor, as we talked about last week, is a biblical commandment to be able to hear the command to remember what Amalek did in its desire to be genocidal and to destroy the Jewish people. And anyone who follows that same philosophy is considered Amalek. That has nothing to do with land. It has nothing to do with anything other than the desire to destroy, which is very hard for Jewish people to understand, which is why we have to be commanded to remember, because we keep thinking like, we must have misunderstood. There must have been a reason. People don't do things for no reason. It's like, yeah, they do. When there is a hatred that is so deep and intrinsic, people do things that are completely counterproductive, the whole thing. So the fact that this happened on Shabbat Zachor, so I know that there are people here who have family and friends in Israel and had your various experiences. So afterwards, after we're done with our official class, if you want to stay on and share some of those stories, we'll do that. But I want to be able to kind of go through our class, and then afterwards we'll have a chance to share individual stories, or if there's anything else that you would like to contribute. Okay, so it started on Shabbos morning. Our alarm first went off at 8:15. We were getting ready to go to services, and that was our first sign that something was up. But that sign was actually just a warning that came to say, just due to the security situation, stay close to a place of your bomb shelter. So we went ahead to our synagogue because our synagogue, our shul, our minyan meets in a bomb shelter. So it's a bomb shelter that has been converted to a shul. So we're there every week. So when we went in, we knew that we'd be like in the right place. So we just went ahead and went and did our davening. And there was, after we finished davening, it was actually after we had read Parsha Zachor, then another alarm went off. So it was like literally while we were reading it that we got an alarm to then go into the shelter, which we did. And then after that was over, we had the all clear sign. Then we walked home. And unlike in Denver, where we were a 30 to 40-minute walk, we're like a 4-minute walk from our shul to our apartment. So we went in, and then for the rest of the day, we had alarms off and on. So we went in and out of it's called a mamad, which is the safe room. So we went in and out of that throughout the day and the evening and the night. And it's been like that since then. So the truth is even though we're deep in the territories of Yehuda and Shomron, of Judea and Samaria, we're actually in a fairly quiet area because we're so close to Jericho. Iran hasn't gotten stupid enough to try to bomb directly this area because it's too close to Jericho, which is obviously all Arab. It's under the Palestinian Authority. So it's been quiet. So it's been quiet, meaning we haven't had, thank God, actual missiles falling on us. There's shrapnel. And that's why you have to stay inside, is because what goes up must come down. Those missiles, when they are destroyed, the shrapnel falls, and that can be deadly also. And it can start fires and the whole thing. So it has been very intense, but there is a sense of relief that finally the attack is happening because we've been waiting to do it and to take care of this and not just be, the phrase they use is mowing the lawn. We just cannot keep doing half-baked approaches to this. It has to be taken care of. And the people in Israel feel very strongly about the people of Iran, the civilians who want this desperately to happen to turn over the regime. So who knows what's going to happen, but it's been a sense of gratitude for the miracles, what has happened. And I'm sure you've read some of the things that have happened about how the intelligence worked together, the Americans and the Israelis. It is mind-boggling, from the fact of finding out that they used cameras in their traffic signals, like, street cameras, to be able to monitor Khomeini's goings, comings and goings, implants in dental implants for tracking, and in some other places of the inner workings of somebody's body to be able to also track. And it's mind-boggling. And then you have, thank God, the arrogance of the Iranian leadership who chose to meet at all one time and take out 40 leaders all at one time. So this is where it gets interesting with how this is all coming out. And as we know, even though the decision was made to act at that time because it was the right time, this has been in the works of gathering the information for years. And it's not unlike the Purim story that we know occurred over a period of 12 years. When we read it in the Megillah, it happens very quickly. You read the story very quickly. So it seems like things happen just one thing after the next. But the whole thing was set up and set into motion a long time ago. And so this is unfolding in a similar way, that all these things that were done very much behester and hiddenness and undercover and covert, all of a sudden comes, and then it bursts onto the scene. But what we see bursting on the scene is the result of all sorts of work that went into it beforehand. And thank God, and people thanking Hashem. And it's, people like dancing and expressions of gratitude and appreciation to God and to the Air Force and to the soldiers and the people who are so brave. I said 200 fighter jets in the air at one time, all going to the same place. I'm sorry, that sounds like a disaster just in and of itself. Like, where's air traffic control? Like, how are you navigating all of that? So the whole thing is really miraculous. And we've been very focused on the miracle of so many miracles, and so grateful for the different military, the what's it called, this David Sling and the Iron Dome, and all of these things to be able to protect, because when these missiles are blown up in space, you can hear the booms and the pounding of when that happens. And we're just so grateful, because we've seen from the attack on Tel Aviv, the attack in Beersheba and in Beit Shemesh, where there were direct hits. And there was one also in a community outside of Yerushalayim. Also, they leave craters, like you could levels like a block. We're talking about massive destruction. And it's nothing, these are in a totally different category than what Hamas has, or even what the Houthis have. That's why people are like, oh, it's just the Houthis. These other things, that this is massive. So every time you hear one of these booms of a missile that's not landing, here it's like, thank you, Hashem. So it's very easy to kind of say, okay, well, it's a boom, let's go back to what we were doing. So it's in a way hard to keep being in a place of gratitude for all these miracles of every single one. So Purim itself was very interesting. The fast of Esther, which we talked about last week, being very important, because that was done actually on the day of the battle of the Jews in Shushan. The fast of Esther this year was very intense, and people focusing on it. And then we went into Purim. So what they did is, the synagogues did not have Purim, did not have Megillah readings. They had them in the different bomb shelters throughout the yishuv, throughout Mitzpeh Yericho, and that's what people did. So you can go online and see people like having Megillah readings in the bomb shelters and dancing and singing, but the mood was joyful and happy. It wasn't like, oh my God, we're in a bomb shelter and it's Purim. It was like, it's Purim, we're having miracles. This is happening in our time. We're celebrating. So it was very, very joyful. And then, so we did that, and then there were more sirens. And then on Purim Day, you have the mitzvah of having a seudah, a festive meal. And we were invited to friends who live one building over from us. So when we got there, there were like 25 people there. I think 25, 30 people. So the host had decided, their safe room didn't hold 30 people. It's like a bedroom. It's like a very small bedroom. So what they did is they had people volunteer to have their mamad. So in case there was a siren, then what they did is they divided everyone in groups. So as we sat down to our meal and we started eating, the host said, okay, the huts have volunteered their mamad. One is here, one's across the street, one's here, one's there. And then they read the list of names of who should go to each one. Literally, as soon as he finished the list, the alarm went off. And we just like all burst out laughing. It was like, okay, everyone knows where to go. So we all left and went to our places. And then your phone luckily gives you the all clear sign when it's clear. And then we all went back and had a second course. And then it went off again. And we dispersed again. But then it was like a little bit like one of those speed dating things. Someone said, well, can we come to your mamad? Like it was a different group of people. And so we had kind of this small like group of 6 of us sitting in our mamad, having a more personal conversation that you can't have when you're at a party with 30 people. And it was like, well, that was kind of nice. And then we went back again, and that was it. So that's what everybody did, is they just kind of pivoted and just did like whatever. And that's what we did. They tried to accommodate the kids. And this is so Jewish and so Hamish and small country. The government put out a notice, like our district is kind of like you would have like your congressional district or something, like the district, the city, for this like whole area, big area in Israel. And all of them put out the same thing, I'm sure, saying, we are feel so bad for the children who had been looking forward to Sunday having been the day that they wear their costumes to school, because that is every single school in Israel. The kids wear their costumes to school and have a party. The kids were so bummed. So like all the mothers here were posting pictures of their kids Say, well, it's 7 a.m. and here's my four children in their costumes sitting on the couch, even though there's no school, they're not going anywhere, but like this is costume day. So everyone was like, what are we supposed to do with this? But the government is saying, we know the kids look forward to this. We feel so bad. I'm like that's not usually what you hear from people. Anyway, it was very sweet. And communities pivoted in our son and daughter-in-law's community. Some of the teenagers put together an impromptu Purim carnival. They got some games and snacks and coloring, and they did a thing and made a carnival for the kids. Here, the mothers did a thing. They decided that in the park, everyone would be close enough to get to a mamad, that they would have a costume to wear your costume and go down to the park, like for this short period of time so you could see it. And they found someone had like some red fabric. Who has this on hand? Red fabric to put down on the ground to make like a red carpet so the kids could walk on it and have like a costume parade. So it was just so sweet. And then they had a truck with music that came down and played Purim music. And it was just very festive. And also, here you have this thing like the kids are being kept safe, but they're sad because they didn't get to wear their costume because they're children. So that's what you're focusing on. But it's like, nobody said to them, like, well, you should just be grateful to be alive because, people are trying to wipe us out. They're like, you're right. That is so sad that you can't have your costume. Let's see how we can fix that. And so that was dealt with as well. So it really has been incredible. And this sounds strange, but it is an honor. It is an honor to be here and to be with the Jewish people. I want to share two things you may have heard or you may have seen. Just the Jewish Israeli ingenuity. Someone came up with an app called canishower.com. It's a website and it tells you whether you can be able to shower. So the reason is the way it works out now, not from Lebanon, but from Iran, it takes 12 minutes for the missiles to come from Iran here. They're very fast. Iran's very far away. We have 12 minutes. So they send a warning first to say missiles are going to be approaching in the next few minutes. And then if they actually approach in your area that's a problem, then the big alarm system goes off, and then you have 90 seconds to get to your place. So the question is, do you have time to shower between the first and the official, which may or may not come? So now that someone has thought up the algorithm to be able to predict whether you can go take a shower. So it's called canishower.com. So people are actually using this, and I do this too. I'm like, okay, well, let's see, do I have time to bring the water to a boil to start my rice and then I can put it on simmer, or should I just go straight to my mamad? So the kind of Jewish approach to this is very interesting. They said it's probably the same people who were working on, bugging the traffic lights. And now they got that done. It's like, well, now what can we do? So now they have canishower.com. So they also developed, there's a QR code that you can use to find out who is single in your neighborhood miklat, your neighborhood bomb shelter. Because they're like, well, you're bringing all these people together. We should be able to make some matches here. So you can put your phone with the QR code and find out if there's somebody who might be available for you. I'm like, this is so Jewish. It's hilarious. This is so hilarious. Then what people are doing, people are having weddings at the bomb shelters. There's a story of like a little girl at her bomb shelter. She took it upon herself to be the pet comforter because this is so scary for the dogs, especially. Just the alarm, it's they like tremble. So she's made it her job to go around and pet all the pets to keep them calm, which probably helps her stay calm as a little kid when this is all happening. So it's pretty crazy. And I want to share, and you might have seen this, the synagogue that was attacked in Beit Shemesh, there was a Torah scroll. Did you see this? The Torah scroll that was damaged with shrapnel. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this works. Hold on a second. Where is share? Oh, here it is. Share. Hold on one second. Okay. What you are seeing here is the first thing I'm going to show you right here is a Torah scroll. And right where my cursor is, this is a piece of shrapnel that penetrated the Torah scroll. When they opened it up to see where the shrapnel was, it is this little piece here is where it was damaged, right where my cursor is. I know you can't see that maybe so well, but right there, that gray thing, that's a puncture. And this is right at Parshat Zachor. Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek b'terech b'tzeitchem mi-Mitzrayim. Okay, so right there where it had been, that's where that happened, which I think is just pretty amazing. So that was amidst the tragedy of the people who were killed and the families that were destroyed in that attack from people who did what they were supposed to do and they were where they were supposed to be. But the missile is a direct hit and just that was it. But somehow that message of that Torah was a place of comfort for people. So that's what's been happening. And now we have Lebanon, the Hezbollah, which has decided to join in after Israel warned them not to. Unfortunately, we don't get an early warning for Lebanon Hezbollah missiles. That's in a different category. So there's no, can I take a shower? So, but you don't know if it's coming from Hezbollah or from Iran. So anyway, you just have to be ready. So it's interesting that they chose, what we're seeing is a description of, like specifically for Hezbollah, of a hardening of their hearts because they didn't have to enter this. Israel said, just stay out of this. But no, they have to come in, which of course invites Israeli response, which is going to be and is severe. So it says, this is like the Egyptians who came after the Jews with the splitting of the seas. Like, what are you thinking? Why are you doing this? Don't you see what's happening? But no, their hearts are hardened. And it says their own evil is hardening their hearts to do things that are self-destructive. So it's a very crazy, crazy time. And we feel, Jewish people, is we are really living the Purim experience. It's like unfolding before us, and reading the Megillah was just you didn't feel like you were reading something historical. In fact, it just felt like it was unfolding before our eyes. So what makes this especially poignant is that Purim has with it this paradox of the danger that Haman and Achashverosh posed to the Jewish people of wanting to annihilate us and being totally fine with it, some being bent on it, of Haman being bent on it. And people have pointed out that Khamenei, that his name in Hebrew is like Kehamani, like I am like Haman, Kehaman ani, so that I am going together, I am like Haman. So that this is like of having as your reason for existence the desire to destroy the Jewish people and the state and the land of Israel. So this Purim, yes, Etta, if you want to unmute.
Just a question. How come they're all start with that Chas sound? Hezbollah, Hamas,
Oh,
Haman,
that's a
Houthi.
very good question. They're different. Hamas is actually an acronym, and I forget what it stands for. So that's different. And Khamenei and Hezbollah, that's a really good question. Haman is actually with a hey, Haman. It's not Haman. Khamenei is more with the Cha, but they all do have that initial sign. Good ear, hearing that. Okay, so this is like these people are definitely on the same wavelength. Yes, Selena.
I think it's to do with the word anger. Hamas means anger, and ch is such a guttural, rough sound, and I think it's linked to anger.
It is.
That's what I think.
That is true. Hamas in Hebrew means anger, but in Arabic, it's an acronym for an organization. So, and I don't know what the exact words are in Arabic of the ch, mums, sa, but definitely in Hebrew, the Hamas, and it sounds like that, right? The ch sound, like Chama is, yeah. Okay, so we have this this kind of scenario that is unfolding. So what's interesting, to put it again in a Purim context, is Purim happens in the month of Adar, which we know. Interestingly, there is in the Gemara, in it's either 2a or 2b of Megillah, the Masechet Megillah, it talks about the timing of Purim. And it actually says that the Megillah can be read as early as the 11th of Adar and as late as the 15th of Adar, which is kind of interesting because I never knew that. I thought it was on the 14th of Adar if you're in a regular city and the 15th of Adar if you are in Jerusalem. But it can actually be read as early as the 11th of Adar. Why? For practical reasons, halachic reasons, it was set because if people could come to market in ancient times, they didn't want people traveling on Shabbos to be prepared for the Megillah reading, so it could be read early so that people could travel and get back to wherever they needed. Because the idea is, ideally, is the Megillah should be read with as many people possible present. Even though someone can come and read the Megillah for somebody, you know, who's homebound or whatever, for whatever reason, the ideal is to be in a community. So what's interesting is you say the Megillah can start, like Purim can start as early as the 11th of Adar. So what was the 11th of Adar? Well, if you look at your handy Jewish calendar, that would take you to this past Shabbos. The 28th of February was the 11th of Adar, which is when the attack began. So we could say, when did Purim really start for us? We really started our Megillah on the 11th of Adar, which in the Talmud says it can start as early as then. If we would have known that, we would have then maybe guessed that the attack was going to be on Shabbos, and we wouldn't have had to be wondering about what other dates might have been involved. So that it can be as early as then, which is exactly when it was on the 11th of Adar, which was on Shabbos, and that's when it started. Okay, so now what else about Purim is that Purim, and in the month of Adar, actually, let me back up. The month of Adar, which we've studied in the past, has the spiritual quality, as do each of the months have their own spiritual quality from a Kabbalistic perspective. The spiritual quality of the month of Adar is laughter. Laughter is a uniquely human expression because it requires intellect. Laughter comes when someone has an expectation of one thing and then something else happens that's its opposite or goes off in a different direction. And the differential between that can be laughter or anger. So if we're expecting one thing to happen, you were expecting to take your flight and you get to the airport and they tell you it's canceled, but I was already packed and ready to go. So most people don't react with laughter. Most people get angry and upset. But the truth is that there's a very fine line because it depends on what your expectation is. So somebody could laugh. They could say, ha ha, I thought I was going to be flying today, but instead I'm spending the night in the airport. Oh, well, that's Hashem is running the world. So our ability to respond with how much control I think I have over things is part of what's going to determine if I react with anger or if I react with laughter. So, and what the expectation is. So that, for example, if a child does something that goes against your expectations, you would probably laugh. And if an adult or someone else did it, then you might be angry. But it's because I didn't expect that of you because you are a mature person, and so it might make me angry. But it's the differential that causes the laughter. So everything about Purim is supposed to be funny. So when we say funny, we're not talking about slapstick. We're talking about, well, that's funny. So the Megillah, the Purim story is funny. Haman, who paid money in order to kill the Jews and built gallows to hang Mordecai on, instead gets hanged on them himself. And the money that he paid, we actually understood, is the money that then the king gave later to the Jewish people to go rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. So who paid for the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash?
Mhm.
Now, most people aren't going to say, let's have a sign up on the wall of, dedicated by Haman Harasha. But it's like, he paid for it, so shouldn't we give it? He paid 10,000 talents of silver. I think he deserves like his name on something. So the question is like, well, that's kind of funny. That is pretty funny. So this is what we call funny, is when something you had an intention, but then it just blows back on you. And that is what we are seeing with what's happening now. You wanted to destroy us, and instead we're going to destroy you. Now, I know Jewish people often have trouble with this idea because we think that we're pacifists, but we are not pacifists. The Torah itself commands us. If someone rises up to kill you, you get up first and kill them. It's not to be negotiated with. It is, you must preserve your life, and you take a preemptive action. So this idea of, that of course we want peace, but sometimes it is required to act with strength and military strength in order to create peace. So we know that King Solomon, King Shlomo, King Peace, that's what his name means, that it was only after the battles that his father, King David, fought and prevailed that created the environment for the peace that the Jewish people had for the building of the first Beit HaMikdash. So this idea of this preparation for something to happen, things are going one way, but then it turns around, is also symbolic of times of transition where something is in process and then it materializes. When something is in process and then it materializes, especially if the process itself is stressful or dangerous or harmful, painful, whatever it is, that then when there's a success, think about even in a simcha, when, let's say you have a child who's really struggled. They've struggled, let's say, learning in school, and they've had so many setbacks and things that's been so difficult. And they finally, like they graduate with honors or whatever it might be. And the parents and the teachers who were close to them, they're like laughing with joy. Their happiness has I can't believe it. You worked so hard. It was so hard for you. There were so many challenges. The more difficult, the more the joy, and there is an aspect of laughter. It's like, I can't believe it. This is so exciting. And that's the response. So we have the same idea that for what's happening in the unfolding of Jewish history is that when we are in the process and it's painful and difficult, but when it gets close to the transition where we're going to see results, the results, that turning point is called the point of laughter. Thinking of a woman in the delivery room after she's gone through a very hard labor, through transition, and then the baby is finally born, and she was in so much pain, and she's like screaming and shrieking or whatever, if she didn't get an epidural or whatever it might be, and then she's laughing. Why is she laughing? She's laughing then, like when this baby is born, is because I was in so much pain and now you're here and I can't believe it. And this is like it's this laughter. If things would have just been kind of calm all along, and then you do this, you do that, and then you have a baby and everything works out just fine, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's great, mazel tov. But it's not this buildup. This buildup energy is the buildup of laughter that happens at transitions when we go from something being a painful process to then reaping the results, the rewards, the end, and it causes a response of laughter. So we say this on every Shabbos and holiday. Before we say Birkat Hamazon, we sing a Shir Hamalot, one of the songs of praise, of elevation. And when we say that that our mouths are going to be filled with laughter as we return to the land. Like, why are we laughing? What we're laughing is like, because they try, because like the joke says, they tried to kill us. We won. Let's eat. So this is much bigger of like, they tried to prevent us from reaching our goal, our purpose, our mission, and all the obstacles that were thrown in our faces at every step of the way. And we finally broke through. That causes laughter. It's like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. So the laughter of Purim is that kind of laughter. It's the laughter of where we thought things were going, and the Jews didn't know. Remember, the decree came to them. It came to them. It was at Pesach. It was in Nisan, and then it was 11 months later that the battle actually took place on the 13th of Adar. So they sat with that anxiety, that fear, that trepidation, that entire time, not knowing how it was going to go. And they didn't know until it actually happened. And so the relief and the joy and the laughter that comes from that is what we're feeling a little bit of now. It's like, finally, we just have to put an end to this. We have to put an end to this. So it's like, Diana, it's like, enough already. We can't do this anymore. So this is the laughter. How do we know that this was going to be like the fate of the Jewish people? Is to look at the first person who was born Jewish. Abraham and Sarah became Jewish, if you want to say that, discovered whatever that really means. But the first person who was born into it was Yitzchak. Yitzchak means laughter. And Yitzchak is the future tense of he will laugh. When will he laugh? Now, if you look at anybody's life, Yitzchak doesn't really seem like you wouldn't say, when I think about Yitzchak, what I think about is laughter. It's like, I don't think so. You think of like, I don't think that. See, you were taken up for the Akedah, and then, you had your children, and you had your sons, Jacob and Esau, and Esau was the bad one, and Jacob took the blessing, and then this, and one wanted to kill the other one. I would say, when I think of Yitzchak, I think of laughter. It's like, no. But what's the laughter is that Yitzchak shouldn't have been born. Yitzchak, Abraham and Sarah shouldn't have even had a child because according to the stars, according to the natural medical opinion, Sarah could not have a child. So what is Yitzchak? Yitzchak and Sarah says, everyone will laugh with me. Why? Because I'm an old lady and I had a baby. I shouldn't be having a baby. That story is the story of the Jewish people. We shouldn't be here. And here we are. That's pretty funny. It says that is the laughter of the Jewish people. That is who we are meant to be. We are in the process of birthing us. And as we know, in a pregnancy, I remember when taking the Lamaze class before our daughter Audrey was born, taking the Lamaze class at Rose Medical Center. I call it Rose Hospital because I was born there, and it was Rose Hospital when I was born there. So I still call it Rose Hospital. And shortly before I was due, they showed us a movie of like all these different kinds of deliveries. There was forceps, there was cesarean, there was suction, there was this, there was that. I left there like not even able to breathe. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm like not doing this. And that night I went into labor, and I'm like, I guess I am. So, but as someone said, you can only have one of those. You can't have a forceps delivery and a C-section. You can't have, it's going to be one of them. That makes it like, oh my God, I'm going to have all these things happen to me. But the overwhelming feeling of like, how is this going to happen? This can't really happen. This idea of like this giving birth of the Jewish people coming into being, like the transition time is the most difficult, the most painful, and yet it's the place that has to happen. And the birth of the baby, just because we're used to it, that's the funniest thing of all. Here is this little creature that has been living in water for its entire existence, receiving all of its nutrients from its mother, doesn't open, is like not functioning as any kind of a living thing would function outside of the womb. And within seconds after it comes out, it's breathing, the blood reverses. Oops, sorry, I just hit that. And it starts, it's like, how did that happen? I wasn't expecting that. We're just used to it because that's how everybody came into this world. But the truth is, it's the funniest, strangest, craziest thing ever. The Jewish people are like that as well. It's like, it doesn't look like this is going to work. It doesn't look like it. All you have to do is look at a map and listen to the vitriol of people around the world saying what they have to say about the Jewish people. It's like, how can this work? This is not going to work. It's not going to work. And yet here we are. Before the birth, things get harder. When Moshe went to Pharaoh to first ask for the Jews to be freed, the workload increased and the oppression became greater. And the people reacted, and Moshe even reacted to God. It's like, why did you send me? Like, you just made things worse. It's like, just you wait. Just wait. So things are very challenging, but there is such a sense of resolve here. Of people's like, this has to happen. This has to happen. It's like, enough. So Purim is unfolding. It's the one holiday. This is even after Mashiach comes, after Messiah comes. We're in a messianic age. Purim is the only holiday that will not be lowered in importance. The other holidays will be changed in their status. Not that they'll go away, but they will be overshadowed by more amazing miracles. And so they'll just kind of pale by comparison, but not Purim. It says Purim is going to stay. The light of Purim stays. So we have the entire month of Adar. So even though Purim is over for me now and for you soon, at the end of this day, it says we're still in the month of Adar. The entire month is meant for this time of laughter, and the laughter requires emunah. Laughter is a response to situations that are challenging when you have faith that Hashem is running the world. Otherwise, you end up on the path of sadness and sadness and anger. And sadness and anger is debilitating, demoralizing, and immobilizing. And the Jewish people says there's no such thing, our rabbis tell us, there's no such thing as yeush. There's no such thing as despair. That the Jewish people just keep going. So I don't know if I mentioned this last week. It was even more, obviously I didn't know anything last week, but last week when I thought of it, but even more so now, I said my theme for Shalach Manas should have been the show must go on, and have like a popcorn thing with popcorn and a drink and candy or something. The show must go on. And that's actually what people are saying. The show must go on. It's not looking like what I thought it was going to be, and I don't get to control it, but I can ride the wave of it. So again, like the pregnancy metaphor, is you don't get to control the labor and delivery. I remember having a friend say, well, I'm going to give birth at blah, blah, blah time, and I'm going to do it this way. I'm doing it at my house. I'm doing this, and the other thing. She ended up with an emergency C-section. It's like, that's nice that that's what you think it's going to be, but it's going to be whatever it's going to be. And you are not in control, just so you know. So it says that the women, because of our bodies, whether you have had a physical child or not, that our bodies go through a menstrual cycle, which we also don't control, of like how that happens at inopportune times and things like, well, I wasn't really expecting that. I was like, well, here it is. That it says that the women have a mindset about being able to laugh, to be able to say, that's surprising, and be able to like feel it in our bones, in our guts, in our inner workings. So it also says for the women in Eshes Chayil, a woman of valor, the woman laughs at the time to come. She laughs at this whole concept because she knows. Women know we're not in control. And what we're supposed to do is we prepare, like their tambourines. We prepare for the redemption, and we live with faith and trust and joy and anticipation and emunah as we go through the struggle. Miriam was a little girl when she could see redemption unfolding, and she was at least 86 years old at the actual exodus from Egypt. That's a very long time to wait for something to come to fruition. So if she could wait 80 some years, we can too. I hope that it'll be much, much sooner than that. But it's like we are living at a time when things are aligning. We can almost tell. One of the phrases we use that we say about Hashem is that Hashem is Ish Milchama. God is a man of war, which doesn't mean that God makes war. It's that Hashem causes wars to happen because people fight against Hashem and Hashem's people. Just like Amalek, why did Amalek attack the Jewish people when we left Egypt? We weren't on their land. We weren't anywhere close to them. Like Iran, you have no borders in common. We have nothing. You have nothing involved. And who are the Houthis? Like, we're not involved with them either. So why is it that your reason, your flag says death to the Jews, death to Israel, death to this? Is like, what is your problem? So this attitude, it says this way of being in the world is like, this is something that the Jewish people have been dealing with for a long time, but it's the Jewish people as representatives of Hashem. We are representing God in this world. And that's why they claim that they represent God. Like, we're doing God's work, we're purifying the world to get the evil filth of the Jewish people, et cetera, out. It's like they have to use a God reason because that's who they're fighting against. So we, as God's representatives, as God's people who were elected, chosen, and choosing to be able to be in this role, comes with a serious amount of challenges and difficulties, but it also comes with tremendous honor. So what have Jewish people been, if you've seen any of the videos of people singing and dancing in the bomb shelters, La Yehudim Haita Ora Simcha V'Sason Vikar, for the Jews there was light and gladness, don't be afraid, Am Yisrael Chai. People are just overflowing with happiness, and that is our response. So that happiness and joy and laughter are the antidotes to depression and anger, frustration, being immobilized and at your wit's end. It's like we just keep going. The show must go on. So Purim continues, and we have Purim. We quote the Megillah every Motzei Shabbat because we say at Havdalah, La Yehudim Haita Ora V'Simcha V'Sason V'Ikar Kein Tia Lanu. From the Megillah, a quote, for the Jewish people there was light. La Yehudim Haita Ora, light, Simcha, joy, Sason, another kind of joy, V'Ikar, and gladness and dearness. Like, everything is beloved to the Jewish people. So that we quote from the Megillat Esther every Motzei Shabbos as we go into our week, because every week after Shabbos is over is taking us closer and closer to the final redemption. And this is the final, not probably the infinite metaphors, but that's the other metaphor about a pregnancy. Even if a woman feels like her pregnancy is never going to end, and I remember walking to the same Rose Medical Center for my OB appointments and walking on whatever street I was on, and walking on that street, having to park my car far away and walking into the office, and with every step just like wanting to curse whoever was parked closer than me because I could like hardly walk. And you're like, this pregnancy is never going to end. Well, My first pregnancy, I was 3 weeks early, so I don't even know what I was talking about. That being said, no matter how long one thinks their pregnancy feels, the pregnancy does end. So it's like, it does come to an end. There's no such thing as like, well, you will be pregnant for the rest of your life. So it says, this means that God set something in motion and it does have an ending point. So by definition, even though we don't know exactly when it's going to be, by definition, it has to be getting closer because we're one day closer to it. We don't know when it's going to be. Our response is the Purim response. LaYehudim hayta ora v'simcha v'sason v'ikar. Kain tiyeh lanu. So shall it be for us the way it was for the Jewish people of Shushan. How they weathered that ordeal, the way they weathered it was with tefillah, with prayer, with Torah study, with mitzvah observance, recommitting to Torah observance, and their achdus and their unity between themselves. It says the unity and the acts of chesed and kindness one to another. Says this is our package. That's our weapon, if you will. That is the weapon of our strength. That's what creates the strength of the Jewish people. The very end of the Megillah, and let's turn to it for a moment. We'll see, it seems to end on kind of anticlimactically for sure. It is on, I want the very last paragraph. Okay, hold on a second.
Page 1262, Ellen, is that it?
1261, page 1261. Yeah, 1261 in the stone chumash. And what we're going to read is actually the very end. And you'll notice in the chumash that the very last line, among other lines that are also in the Megillah, are highlighted. When they're highlighted in the bold, that means the entire congregation says this verse out loud. So the very end of the Megillah is said out loud, and it says, verse 3, for Mordechai the Jew was viceroy to King Ahasuerus. He was a great man among the Jews, and he found favor with the multitude of his brethren. He sought the good of his people and was concerned for the welfare of all his posterity. Someone said, you have to look at that sentence very carefully. It says he was a great man among the Jews and found favor with the multitude of his brethren. What does that mean? The multitude. Many, but not all. So some people were like, Mordechai, you're the one who caused the problem. If you would have just bowed down to him, and we wouldn't have had this whole thing to start with. You're causing the problem with your blah, blah, blah. So there was always a political aspect involved in every scenario. So Mordechai was not appreciated by a significant number of people, not half and half. He was appreciated by the majority, but not all. But what was his response? And found favor with the multitude of his brethren. He sought the good of his people. He sought only the good for his people and was concerned for the welfare of all his posterity. Who was he concerned for? Who did he have a good eye for? Everybody, everyone. It says that Mordechai is the antidote to the squabbling of the Jewish people, of the divisiveness, which still existed. You'd be like, didn't we learn our lesson after going through near annihilation? And you still have people who are not so happy with Mordechai. You did not learn your lesson. After October 7th, we had our brief time of everyone together, and then it starts unraveling again. Did we not learn our lesson? It's like, what's wrong with us? So in the end, even though it doesn't sound like a climax of the story, in the end, it's telling us Mordechai's approach is the only thing that is going to save you. Mordecai's approach is, I'm sorry if you don't all like me. I care about you. I am my posterity. I care about all of you, whether you like me or you don't like me. And that is the approach collectively and also individually. It says, as soon as we start in with, well, this person, this, blah, 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 it says, we're losing the plot. It says, because the Jewish people must remain unified. It's very interesting how that works. So Mordechai is the person. Interestingly, he comes from the tribe of Benjamin, as we learn about him at the beginning of the Megillah. He is Ish Yamini from the tribe of Benjamin. The tribe of Benjamin comes from the person Benjamin. Benjamin was the only one of the brothers who was not involved in the sale of Joseph. Not through anything that he chose, he just wasn't there. He was little. He wasn't there, he wasn't involved. But because of that, he was never involved in the animosity, obviously toward his own brother, Joseph. We know that when Benjamin grew up and had his own children, he named all his children for something having to do with Joseph, something having to do with his long-lost brother. He was never involved in the machlokas. He was never involved in the issues that separated his family, which is why the Beit HaMikdash is built on land from the tribe of Benjamin. It's like Benjamin is the one, which is where we live in Mitzvah Yericho, is on the land of Benjamin. And there's a portion of it that protrudes into Yerushalayim, which is where the Beit HaMikdash was. And so the Beit HaMikdash can only be in a place that represents the unity of the Jewish people. The only tribe that really represents that fully is the tribe of Benjamin. And so Benjamin, in the form of Mordechai here, is the one who's saying, I'll give you a little lesson here. After all this trauma that we just went through with this scenario that could have been our entire destruction, is you will not be able to find universal love and support. Not going to happen. And our response to it as individuals and as a community is, and I love you anyway, and I'm here for you, and I want the best for you. And that, in the end, will bring the final redemption. So when we get to that place, that's what's going to facilitate the total transformation. We will be able to get to a place where, God willing, we will build the third Beit HaMikdash as a place of prayer and gathering for all of humanity. And what's really interesting is who wants to help make that happen? The Iranians, the Iranian people, which is the ultimate laughter of all. It's like the regime that has hijacked that nation wants to destroy us and has no end of how much money they will devote to that or effort. And the people of Iran were like, we love the Jews. We love Israel. Bibi, you're our buddy, or whatever they're singing out in the streets. They can't wait to help us. So I'm like, that's pretty funny that out of the place that is the source of destruction will come the same place of construction. And it may be that all that Iranian money, that they'll say, we'd love to give that to you to rebuild the third Beit HaMikdash. Sounds like a great idea. So who knows? Stay tuned. The best is yet to come. Hard times also, but we have to keep laughing. So with that, I hope you'll enjoy the rest of your Shushan Purim. And someone said, and then Pesach will be coming, but it's not coming yet. We are in Adar, and we will have an overlap of Adar, but also 30 days before Purim. Somebody did have a picture of a costume saying, Mommy, look at my scary costume. And it was a boy wearing a sign that said Pesach is in 30 days. Saying like, and Steve told me today that they already had the 5-pound boxes of matzah at the store. I'm like, don't even tell me that. I have shalach manas all over my kitchen counter. It's like, where's all this chametz supposed to go? So we're giving it to soldiers. So it's the great candy distribution plan in Israel is you buy it for one people, you give it to others, and then you collect it and give it to the soldiers. And then that makes sure there's enough sweets for everybody. Anyway, we should all have this. Anybody who wants to stay on, ask any questions, share anything, please do. Thank you so much. I'm going to actually take
Thank
off the
you.
recording, and then we will look forward to seeing whoever wants to drop off is fine, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week, but I'm here to stay on. Yes, Etta.